President Trump spent his first day at the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, by touting his relationship with the host country's president, Tayyip Erdoğan. Trump also announced that he will lift some economic sanctions against Turkey and that he is considering, possibly strongly, sales of U.S. F-35 fighter jets to Turkey. And that is, to put it mildly, a hot-button topic in the region and throughout NATO. Ed O'Keefe joins us now from Ankara, Turkey. Ed, good to see you.
Major, it's also going to be a hot topic of conversation among lawmakers in both parties. Remember, there was bipartisan support for a law passed during the first Trump administration banning Turkey from being able to have any access to those F-35s because it also purchases and uses what's called the S-400 surface-to-air missile system built by Russia. And the concern is that Turkey would put Russian and American military equipment in cohesion with each other and potentially expose security vulnerabilities and at least share information with Russia, given that it's the one supplying the missile system. The confusion today stems on, has the president indeed said Turkey somehow gets F-35s back, and how many? In Turkish, President Erdoğan told a crowd at the presidential palace during his bilateral meeting with President Trump that President Trump is committed to 5 F-35s being handed over to Turkey, and that the president is a man of his word. The White House tonight won't explicitly confirm that the president has guaranteed that specific number, but says, look at what he said, and what he said is, in essence, he's open to once again providing them those jets. How exactly that would happen, and would it happen with congressional action, remains to be seen.
And Ed, there was conversation that the president had with reporters about Ukraine and recent conversations with Ukrainian President Zelensky and Russian President Putin. What did he have to say?
That's what we're watching for tomorrow when this summit gets underway. The president is set to meet one-on-one with President Zelensky here at the summit, as he did last year at The Hague. He has been in touch by telephone with Zelensky in recent weeks. He's also spoken at length with Vladimir Putin at least twice in the last month or so, when the president had his birthday and then over the weekend. So this issue, this conflict, very much on his mind, as is Iran. We anticipate he will use the summit to once again gripe to their faces about the fact that European leaders especially were reluctant and unwilling to participate in the opening days of the U.S. war with Iran, didn't provide overflight rights, didn't provide bases, didn't send personnel or other equipment into the region, but have said generally they support it. Let's see how exactly tomorrow the president discusses that issue with them at a time when alliance members are making good on another Trump request, and that is that they start spending far more money on defense-related issues. They're all aiming for 5% of their GDPs by 2035, and most members are well on their way. They credit President Trump for making that happen. Major?
Ed O'Keefe, great stuff as always. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. David Satterfield joins me now. He was the ambassador to Turkey during the first Trump administration and the Biden administration. He is currently the director of Rice University's Baker Institute for Public Policy, a place I know well. Mr. Ambassador, it's great to have you on the program. Pick up on what Ed O'Keefe just told my audience about the F-35 sales. This is a long-running conversation. Congress is involved. NATO nations are involved. How do you assess what was said today?
Back in 2019, in the first Trump administration, the president had a long session with President Erdoğan, and the president expressed sympathy for Erdoğan's dilemma here with the S-400 Russian air defense system. The president has wanted very much to help Turkey, didn't want to pull them out of the F-35 program. But the problem here lies in 2 pieces of legislation. The National Defense Authorization Act, which has a specific statutory provision barring acquisition of the F-35 by Turkey until it is no longer in possession of the S-400, and the CATSA legislation. That's the legislation that sanctioned Turkish defense industries for that acquisition. Now, the president's got options. He can try to get Congress to change the National Defense Authorization Act. He can, with respect to the CATSA sanctions, issue an executive waiver, national security interests. The problem here is the Congress. There has been a bipartisan majority strongly in favor of upholding those sanctions. And the president's going to have to tackle that if he wishes to address this issue.
And Congress is concerned about this in part because Israel has a somewhat frosty relationship with Turkey and President Erdoğan. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was on Fox a couple of days ago describing Erdoğan as unrelentingly hostile to Israeli interests.
Well, I think, Major, there are 2 major issues here. The first is just as you cite. the extraordinarily inflammatory rhetoric which President Erdoğan and his senior officials have used with respect to the state of Israel, not just its government. But there's another issue, which is Greece. There is a very strong concern in the part of the Congress with regard to the acquisition of F-35s by Turkey. Greece is due to acquire them in a few years as well, in terms of the balance in the Aegean and the possibility of threats to Greece.
And talk to me, Ambassador, about how you see this summit going forward. What are the larger NATO concerns about President Trump's relationship with Turkey, Turkey's role in NATO, and aligned issues?
I don't believe there is a major concern on the part of alliance with regard to President Erdogan or Turkey. It's not a principal question here. Turkey is a critical part of the NATO alliance. It's the second largest land force after the United States in NATO, and it's taken on many complex and very difficult NATO missions. There's no question marks over Turkish participation. The questions here have to do with President Trump and his own positions, as your correspondent has noted, with regard to the alliance. Where is he going on Iran? What happens, particularly considering the events of today, with the suspension of the waivers on Iranian oil exports? The NATO allies are going to want to know, what's the president's plan here? They weren't consulted when this began. How does it all end? And they're going to want to know about Ukraine and Russia, but not Turkey.
Got you. And when the NATO countries asked the president what your plan is, what are their expectations based on what happened today? Not only did the United States take back the waiver of the oil sanctions, but also 3 vessels were hit by projectiles in the Strait of Hormuz. That's also got to be on their minds.
It is absolutely on their mind. There's an impact in every market in the world, and not just hydrocarbons. From the uncertainty in the Strait of Hormuz, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices have moved up again today significantly, so has gasoline, refined products. All of that is going to be part and parcel of both the alliance conversations collectively with the president, as well as his bilateral meetings with key alliance members.
Ambassador Satterfield, while we were speaking, just seconds ago, I was advised of this in my ear. The United States is carrying out some military strikes in Iran in retaliation for some event. Attacks on the commercial ships that I just mentioned in the Strait of Hormuz. This is just developing, just breaking right now. So I'm not asking you to give me your sense of that, but just this would be a predictable, possible result of the skirmishing back and forth.
It's absolutely predictable. But look, there's one key point here that has to be made. For Iran, the critical outcome of this past conflict or continuing conflict is its acquisition of control over the Strait of Hormuz and the inability of any power, including the United States, to forcibly open the strait. It can only be reopened by agreement, and Iran wants to make that agreement as much in its favor as possible in terms of acknowledgement of control and flows of revenues.
With experience and expertise, Ambassador David Satterfield, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.